thing to think about. Very few people know that. That Tempest, current modern day Tempest, was for a short period of time under the title of Tempo Storm.
Well, let's get things started between Tempo Storm and Roll20. Game number 1 will take place on Battlefield of Eternity. The bans should not surprise you here if you know these teams have been watching their matches, Infernal Shrines and Cursed Hollow. Very standard bans for those two.
And Roll20 taking us to Battlefield of Eternity, they have been so very good at getting that side lane soak, getting the slow play onto the Immortal during the first Immortal phase, hitting the 10, and usually experience-wise gaining a rather large lead over their opponents. So we obviously got to be focusing on how Tempo Storm is going to be able to stop that. There are a few new-ish heroes to be looking towards other than the Garage, which we know has got to be a focal point for both sides of the battlefield.
Yeah, it's making me wonder if we'll see an immediate ban on Garrosh, or because Battlefield of Eternity was not seen from the members of Roll20 yesterday, if maybe there will be some experimenting, seeing if Roll20, where exactly they feel confident playing him. Because as we need to remember, Tempo Storm plays and scrims Roll20 so much, and they have been scrimming each other since the Western Clash, and because that was such a practiced composition that Roll20 brought out, it stands to reason that Tempo Storm has probably had some practice playing against that Garrosh.
Yeah, and so now it's going to be how much that unfolds. It's really cool that game number 1 we find Roll20 being in the secondary pick slot, because that essentially goes with what they displayed in the scrims. How high of a value is Garrosh still going to be for them against Tempo Storm? They either have to pick it right here in their 1-2 or wait until the secondary ban. They immediately are going to keep up the same trend. They pick it up.
And with the Uther, that was 2 out of the 3 games that this team played with Garrosh, comboing with Bud stuns after the fact. And then when Uther got taken away, they paired it with a Stukov and put the silence down in the same way. 2 really cool compositions. Both of them worked extremely well for Roll20, and they want to continue that here onto Battlefield of Eternity in game number 1 versus Tempo.
But what that does leave at hand here is a beautiful Tassadar Tracer opportunity for Tempo Storm if they want to pick that up. It was Battlefield of Eternity, one of the best maps for that composition. We talk about oftentimes, you know, teams like Space Station Gaming will concentrate on picking this duo together, but it does stand out more so on a map like BOE because you have the opportunity to get that pulse bomb so consistently. There's so much skirmishing. The minions don't matter. It's all about the kills. That's Tracer's biggest strength.
It's also one of the few battlegrounds in the past Tempo has shown Illidan on, so if they want to pair an Illidan along with that Tassadar instead to still make sure that they can continue with some split soaking with the Hunt at level 10. But instead they're going to go for Dahaka in that regard and get him for Fury and then Li Ming.
Holding on to not committing to the Tassadar Tracer, and Li Ming is going to be able to make up for the lack of race a little bit here with some of the other picks, but I think the biggest thing that stands out from that rotation of Tempo Storm is the Dahaka removal. Suddenly, beyond the fact that there's Goku on the other side, an amazing Dahaka player, but it's the side soak. That has been the area where we have seen Roll20 gain that advantage in a map like BOE, and that is probably one of the strongest for it, and not too many teams have felt comfortable going into the Illidan post-international Western Clash performance, so suddenly I'm questioning, you know, where are they going to make up for this if Illidan isn't the answer?
And Roll20, in every single game of Part 1, played Li Ming on Battlefield of Eternity, picking her in their first rotation of drafting. So because they wanted to make sure they could get their standard Garrosh and Uther combo that they loved and worked really well with yesterday, that's going to be denied from them too. So 2 strong denies in getting Dahaka and Li Ming picked from Tempo Storm, and now we're looking at the secondary bans.
I really like the ban onto the Rhaegar for Roll20. Beyond the fact that they have already a burst healer on their side with the Uther, we know that common support bans are a major problem at all states. But the reason why I prefer the Rhaegar here above all else is because the Tassadar, you automatically know somebody wants to be enabled. Tracer is one of the few that doesn't necessarily desire that Ancestral, but every other one of them is very much going to want that or the Uther. Now neither's an option. It makes the support that much more of a, you know, high risk on the side of Tempo. There still are, you know, on BOE a couple other options. It's Brightwing's nothing to laugh at on a map like this, but more importantly, things like the Karazim still can come out on their end. I just think it's a very heads-up ban for Roll20.
Yesterday, when denied Dahaka, Goku moved into a side-soaking ETC, bringing back the stage dive and echo pedal to make sure he could still function in the same way. We'll have to see if he wants to do that again here. ETC can combo really well along with the stun lock that Garrosh and Uther already provide. He can combo with the stuns for the Immortal, but they need to also make sure that they are getting a lot of damage. So maybe we'll see him move instead into something like a Malthael to go up against that Dahaka potentially. There's a lot of different options, but it's funny when you look at the hero pool of Goku and what he's played. After Dahaka, it falls off a lot of games for everyone else trying to figure out what he would prefer here. But there is the Malthael and Prismaticism's Chromie.
I was just going to say that the Malthael is a really cool pickup when you have Garrosh on the same side, right? Having the opportunity to be able to set up Malthael into a prime position to use the Tormented Souls.
Into the fray.
And it synergizes with the map objective itself being one of the better race heroes overall. The minute you said that, I was like, oh man, I really hope that they go in that direction, and I'm glad that they did so. But the Chromie is a bit of a standout pick, though, considering the map and the lack of, you know, Ariel onto the other side of the table here. I mean, Prismat is one of the best Chromies that we have in all the North American scene, if not the best. I mean, he kind of was the first to bring it out consistently. But I am still kind of hesitant on a map like Battlefield of Eternity without that major outlier, what they're going to make happen with it. But they've bust out the garage. They've shown that they have a lot of wild strategies with it, and I'm assuming we'll still see that from them.
Yeah, didn't they pair Chromie and Garrosh together yesterday too,
so
knowing that they would have, knowing that they have that immediate follow-up damage from that too, and Prismaticism anyway is not afraid to play Chromie on Battlefield of Eternity because you can get that fairly consistent damage, not for the Sandblast itself, but the Bronze Talons to follow. New Barak, finally, Lucio coming back in. Oh, I talked about it yesterday. I'm so pumped with all the bans happening.
I really like the fact that,
oh my,
that's going to be punished now. I was just going to say, really like the fact that we see a Lucio coming out. Him and Sukov have always been my, you know, I'm surprised at how little we see them played out here in the North American scene. But now with the Tyrande coming online, there is a lot of setup CC, a lot of burst potential coming out from the members of Roll20, and there is no immediate burst heal to keep them alive. So this is going to be very risky for Tempo. I'm not going to say that I feel like they don't have the chance to deal with it, but with how clean we saw Roll20 and the Garrosh play overall, suddenly you got to be a little bit scared.
Roll20 also have the race now. With Hunter's Marks, you've got Malthael and then Chromie when she can get Bronze Talons, but she gets it earlier on because she gets all of her talents 2 levels earlier. That forces Tempo Storm into a position where they would need to be a little more aggressive, and because Lucio needs to ramp up for a while, I'm a little bit scared for the composition, but I'm loving to see what Roll20 is doing. Even bringing back in Tyrande, it really works here. Even when we didn't see her as much, we would sometimes see a rogue Tyrande on Battlefield of Eternity because of the Hunter's Mark and its vulnerability on the Immortals.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the most well-thought-out versions of Tyrande we've seen come to life in the North American scene. I feel like it suddenly is going to be able to stand out. The only thing I'm looking at here, and again, with how youthful kind of Garrosh is in the North American scene, is how effective will he be here? Anubarak, Lucio, Ming, Dahaka, Tassadar all should be able to dodge the flip combo immediately, or at least be able to deal with it appropriately. I mean, obviously, Lucio is like, if he gets flipped, he's just dead, but he should be able to outmaneuver around that. So the Accelerando boost, movement speed, and dashing around, they might be able to get some kind of outplay and suddenly make the Garrosh look a lot, I mean, worse than it looked all of yesterday.
Yeah, maybe he can give the movement speed to all the team trying to avoid those Groundbreaker pulls. Let's see how June can do versus the Groundbreaker, if Tempo Storm can deal with the Garrosh of Roll20.
And we're going to start this off with the blue being Roll20, where Goku is on the Malthael. We have Justin representing it on the Garrosh, as always. Prismaticism on his Chromie. Buds is going to be playing Uther. And I missed the Tyrande, which we have being played by Galara.
Their opponent's Tempo Storm with June playing Lucio. Up next, Fury is playing Anubarak. Cothenluck playing Li Ming. After that, Dahaka played by Psalm. And finally, Caterpillar will be playing Tassadar. Interesting change up in roles slightly for that team.
So I opened with Fear when the Tyrande came online for Roll20 when looking at the draft itself. But if they fail to be able to effectively use the Garrosh flip into a Tyrande combo, or at least the setup of the pull from Garrosh into a combo, it's just essentially going to fall off dramatically, right? This is a really nice flip, but that is exactly what we need to keep our eyes on throughout the entire game. First blood, though, over to Roll20 after another Justin Garrosh play.
And Bud's there for the follow-up, just in a different way, getting into position knowing that the immediate burrow charge out will be something that they need to keep their eyes on. It was something that happened from Freedom all day long in their series yesterday. Either the burrow charge out or Muradin, dwarf tossing out. But what I want to talk about is the roles of Tempo Storm. When I talked to Caterpillar, he said there is a possibility that we'll start seeing them shift him back away from playing the main warrior. Not not potentially all the time, but they feel like they have finally, there's the flip, the Lunara, and the destruction of Lucio. Not
Really?
Lunara, Tyrande.
Shout out to Glarong on that Lunar Flare. It wasn't actually on the kill target, but it was the only place of actual escape for the Lucio, making it a lose-lose scenario. Very well done. Another dodge there coming up from Cattle in that dimensional shift. Back to the roles, though, of Tempo Storm.
Yeah, they feel like they've finally been able to figure out how to make the shot calling still work for Caterpillar, who's going to get thrown right into the team and get taken out.
So, the note on that first sphere, talking about the combo, the Tyrande coming in with that Lunar Flare. So far, it has been effective, but not effective enough. Like, yes, they are getting the kills with it, but it's not immediately after the flip. And I feel like that is eventually going to be something with the mobility of Tempo Storm that can catch Roll20 off guard. It's just not falling too far behind levels 1 through 9.
Well, that may be the plan of trying to watch and see where the mobility goes, putting Buds into that position because it's a point-and-click stun, and then following up with Tyrande stun after the fact, knowing that at that point, then, the escape will have been burned. They already know how to play versus the Muradin and the Anubarak getting away. Those mobilities they dealt with very effectively versus Team Freedom yesterday. So we'll keep our eyes on how they're able to continue making that work versus Tempo Storm. Again, likely to have played versus this type of composition from Roll20 before.
And with Tempo Storm having themselves the Dahaka, an effective side soaker, and almost none on the side of Roll20 other than that Malthael. But that's part of their race, you know, the hero that they want to be involved in this Immortal defense, or at least offense, coming out from them. So this is going to be interesting to watch how many resources Roll20 commits towards this top lane, and if Tempo can stall that out to get that soak that they want, because Tastar is doing work up in the bottom half of the map. This is now making Roll20's high-risk, high-reward Tyrande even more so on that kind of can tilt either direction. They need to be very effective with their initiations over the next couple minutes.
Malthael can continue to poke in, throw down a Death Shroud to get Reaper's Mark on top of the Immortal and then get out. What's really cool here is that he took on a Pale Horse at level 1, something that we never see from Malthael players, but in this instance, knowing that he's up against a Dahaka who can always stalk in, and he's going to do so right now. There goes the Burrow Charge, but stopped by Time Trap. Going to go on in. The stuns are there to follow up to make sure he can get out. Justin is the one who's in trouble, but remember, he gets a boatload of armor as he starts taking more and more poke damage. He'll be just fine.
And Goku going in, doing work onto Fury, and got enough poison damage to be able to get the kill. He charges away, but it's the shielding is enough to keep him alive. Psalm still trying to scoot on out. Lucio not giving the mobility necessary. Justin giving a flip, giving a kill over to Roll20. It's pretty much about almost every time you see that hero flipped onto the other side, it's just Roll20's like, thank you very much. Accumulating already 4 here in the 4 minutes of this game.
And finally getting to the halfway point and forcing the swap Roll20 converge on top of the Immortal of Tempo Storm to bring it down in quick fashion. Tempo Storm doing their best to eliminate the shielding of this first Immortal, but without a doubt, first Immortal going to Roll20.
And it should be noted that Tempo Storm was the team willing to take the initiation on that last fight. It was baited by Prismap beautifully with his time trap, making sure throwing a spell in an obvious area. Nubarak goes for a Burrow Charge, freeze through time. Suddenly the fight has to happen, but not in the manner Tempo Storm wanted. That's into a Tyrande composition. You have the side soakers. I was just talking about the advantages that they had to manipulate this early game, and they are unable to play according to those so far, and that is why we find them an entire level down, a huge shielding onto this first Immortal, and it's just going to be very important that they tread lightly over the next few minutes so this 10 spike doesn't get out of control for Roll20.
A Wrecking Ball was used there. That's the longer of the 2 cooldowns of the displacement for Justin, but he still has Groundbreaker if someone steps into position. With the gate down, he's moving forward, hoping that he could pull someone into the stuns of the Immortal, but not the case. Still, the Immortal starting to bring down the fort, about to half health with 1 more Dragon's Breath. They're getting that fairly down. The fort will stand.
So Roll20, we did see a bit of the weakness of their composition right there. The fact that their only range damage is a Chromie, not the hero you want to be sieging up. Tyrande not effective when it comes to getting too much damage on to those structures. Maybe post Shadow Stock, you could argue, the auto attack speed damage is going to be able to make up for that a little bit. But overall, Malthael, all of them are going to be struggling. So that Immortal, though it was theirs and rather healthy, it didn't make much happen because they didn't get those kills they've been getting for the first couple of minutes.
Psalm's going to come in, nice time trap to allow Roll20 to disengage off of that. And now they've pulled Psalm down into the bottom lane. Brushstalker with that being used. Malthael immediately goes back in the top lane. Goku's going to try to deny some of the experience as best he can. It takes him a little while to bring down these minions though, and Dahaka's making the transition back up into the lane.
It is a pretty big time advantage in the southern lane, though, for Roll20, knowing that they have the Dahaka visual up on top. This is so weak, it's very easy to get a kill here. They're going to start with Fury. Stun follow-up coming out from Buds. There goes the Burrow charge away. No Loner Flare going to be the follow-up this time, but seems like it is enough damage and enough harassment that the members of Tempo have to forfeit over this bottom fort.
Roll20 making sure to take out the minions, but they have that long-range poke. Prismatic System will continue to use. This is taking a little while, though. The Sentinel reveals that Tempo Storm have moved on to their bruisers, getting some of the Shaman to push in the lane. But as we look at the experience bar, when we get ready for the next Immortal phase in 10 seconds, a level lead for Roll20 as they approach heroic abilities for this phase.
And it's all about if Tempo Storm can actually force this fight to the pre-10 of Roll20, because if they fail to do so, they are going to be down an absurd amount of shielding onto this Immortal. But with the timing onto this camp and the spawn onto the Immortals themselves, Tempo Storm lucked right on out here. They're going to have an advantage onto the race itself and remove a lot of free damage that they normally wouldn't have been able to do so. This is extremely lucky for Tempo Storm in this moment, but they also are losing some of the experience in the side lane, and we know that that 10 is just about to come online for Roll20.
And because of that tempo, we're going to instead make a jump, a play for Goku with a boop. Remove him from the board just as Roll20 were about to get their level 10 heroic abilities, giving a man advantage for Tempo Storm. Pushes Roll20 back to the defense. We'll see if they want to maintain that positioning. 10 more seconds until they get Malthael back, but heroic abilities are here, and it is Shadow Stalk for Tyrande.
They got to be worried about the minion wave situation here, because even with the Malthael coming back online, how quick they have the Tyrande and the lethality of their composition, Tempo Storm by no means is going to be able to claim themselves that level 10 in those heroics. So it's all about if Roll20 can make the clever moves here to finish off this Immortal. It's very likely they'll be able to do so. But Tempo trying to stick around, posturing around, throwing out those spells. Justing moved in with that Groundbreaker, and everybody immediately walks away. Tempo Storm, though, they got their 10s with the Immortal, and it wasn't nearly as healthy in shielding, conveniently, after that first spawn.
Looking at heroic abilities, as Shadow Stalk goes in, Clark's going to check in and see who all's hanging out and gets a vision if he can, and pull some members down from Tempo Storm.
We remember that Roll20 does struggle at the siege, though. They're going to be looking more for kills onto the side of the Immortal than actually getting damage onto the structures themselves. So once this front wall goes down, the Immortal moves up. I expect Justing to be poking around. Cattle or Fury are most likely going to be the individuals wearing it because they have the most probability of surviving the situation. Justing not able to land that one. Flip, though, goes on to Fury. Lunar Flare connects the taunt, and that's it. One
more CC. Seems like that is all that Roll20 needed as soon as they hit 10, getting Warlord's challenge. The difference between Fury staying alive and his death, his demise. There goes Buds into the fray, forcing a dimensional shift from Caterpillar. This Immortal still has some health, throwing the slowing sands on top of the gate, making it so it is harder for members to move in and defend this.
Cattle has got to be more respectful when his dimensional shift is down. That's the second time we've seen Roll20 intentionally bait a dimensional shift, and then he's the kill target the next time after. Granted, that one barely didn't get the actual kill, net the kill there for Roll20, but if that continues down the same avenue, I feel like his lack of disrespect might be something that really sets Tempo Storm behind here in this game, even more so than they have done throughout the first 10 minutes.
Brief moment where Roll20 is not quite to 13, so moving back immediately and getting some of the mercenary camps so that Tempo Storm can't find some kills to get back into this game. This is the 2-lane battleground, and they are relying on Dahaka to be able to get the split pressure, the split soak. And seeing that camp up in the top lane, they're going to send him there. Saw him going up to the top, the rest sharking around, hoping that they can maybe find somebody rotating around. Cattle even using Oracle to give some vision, but Roll20 very patient in their positioning until they can get to 13.
It's very well done, and one thing that we also kind of maybe failed to highlight is the advantage that Glarung is providing with those owls in these major transitions, because it covers half the map. You know, for a couple of seconds at least, if there is going to be a crucial transition from your opponents. Tempo was scouted on this slow rotation. They knew this was going to be a free camp. Glarung even getting confident enough to move up there for a raw Lunar Flare. But in the end, it's just more about, you know, establishing dominance, sending a message here. And I feel like it's getting across with that full level lead. The positive side for Tempo is that they should hit the 13 window before the next Immortal's totally consumed, which we see is coming online here in 25.
Yeah, the issue continues to be about every Immortal that they don't have, they're not on the same talent tier for part of the Immortal phase, but they made the best of the last one. using the positioning to their advantage and their fast rotations to the mid to burn down and get about halfway down for the shielding so that it was not quite so severe of an advantage for Roll20. We'll see how they want to play this next one out. Getting their Shaman for some pressure in the top lane, but they're also going to have to deal with the bottom lane. Tassadar doing what he can there as Caterpillar rotates back up, but eventually that'll have to be dealt with by Dahaka.
A lot of free damage there going on for Roll20 onto the Immortal. They're going with the split defensive tactic now. We do see the flip on the Cattle. The taunt's going to be used. Dimensional shift now. This is what I was talking about when it comes to the kill target. You see the members of Roll20 focusing on him whenever that is down. And now we see Malthael swapping back out. Goku's going to use that passive and the damage there from the Dragon's Breath and Prismat. This is very well done and orchestrated here from Roll20, but 13's online. Tempo wants a fight.
I'm so amazed by Roll20 and their positioning after forcing some sort of defensive cooldown. Dimensional shift, they're always watching to see where they can catch them on the other side. Same with Burrow Charge. This team knows what their job is, but beyond just the initial flip follow-up, they know that it's even further than that. They have enough crowd control that they can look for the next move.
And they're doing a good job. Fury going to be the receiving end of that flip there. Cattle's getting drawn back in. Dimensional shift should be off cooldown this time though. Also Archon's available. Might need to be using that for a double reset later. The Tempo Storm has been unable to poke away at this Immortal health. As you see that there is about 10,000 HP difference between these two. And that shielding is something that Tempo Storm wants. Keep in mind that if Tempo does manage to pick up this Immortal, hold on, flip onto Fury, he's able to make it out this one. They have a better sieging composition than Roll20 does, where they haven't been able to make too much happen. Tempo can really open up this map as long as they get themselves an Immortal.
Poke going out on both sides, but both have been forced back to their Immortals in a way that it's really just trying to get the poke on the right heroes. Another pull, another escape. This time thanks to a rock. Roll20 steps forward, starting the poke on the Immortal.
Flip not landing there for Justing. Dahaka still getting the side soak up in the top lane for Tempo Storm. It's catching them up in this experience, but they're still struggling onto this poke as we see it whittling away the Malthael dot over time. Flip on to Fury. This time he's going to cancel it a bit early. Probably gets the damage out, but in the end, nothing gained.
Cocoon, that is on top of Malthael, and he wasn't able to get his inevitable end up. No, Malthael is on top of them with the Divine Shield. Buds gets back into it, thrown into the fray by Garrosh.
Lucio's able to heal this up so far, and they're getting a lot of damage. The slow there going on to Justing up in the front. The armor keeping him alive. Goku going back in. Dahaka's the first fall. Goku's quick after, and in the end, 1,000 HP remains on the Immortal. Roll20 picks up a 3/4 shielding. Fury dragged back. He has no mana to get out. The Lunar Flare doesn't land, and it looks like the members of Tempo Storm survive.
He's still keeping him slowed. He had the movement speed for a while.
Look at that shielding, Gilly. There is so much. We also have to keep in mind, once that front wall actually dies on this keep on the bottom half, that's just enough to break the 16 threshold. And that is when a 16 talent tier or 3/4 shielding Immortal, I mean, this is possibly game. With the comp that we see, it just is going to take 1 to 2 kills.
We still have Warlord's Challenge up. There is no Tormented Souls, but Warlord's Challenge may be just enough with a pull and a toss and the taunt after. Dimensional Shift used very early on.
They have no Malthael in this fight. Justing takes a lot of damage. The armor there, you see counting upwards. Can he keep himself alive? He cannot. The boop comes through and the kill is there. Now Buds, after the Cocoon, gets stunned out. Psalm unable to get a secondary drag quite yet. Lunar Flare thrown down, but he gets the dodge. And in the end, it looks like it's going to be Roll20 backing out after that initiation without Goku.
Brilliant initiation from Tempo Storm to recognize and to take the fight beyond the Immortal, but most importantly, before Roll20 did get to level 16, getting 1 kill on the front line of the person leading the charge. Now Goku's hoping to lead the charge to get caught by a drag.
He's going to pop it. He's going to go right in. The zoning's going to be real.
Shield.
Divine Shield used. And it looks like the keep is going to be the focus here, but it's not going down. Goku tries to commit to it all inning, but the Lunar Flare combo goes on to Fury, and he's just one shot.
There has to be something, one more poke, something to take out this key.
Prismat, I believe in you, man. Lunar Flare. Hey, we did it. And keep is down now for Roll20. But in the end, we have to remember that Tempo Storm was actually within a lethal situation there. They could have very much, if they made one misstep, ended up losing the game there. So that stalled out the forcing of that fight was just what they needed, and they hold on a bit longer. And they also have Dahaka to deal with those catapults on the bottom half, so that's very good for them.
And it's a lot different the next Immortal phase than what we have had in the previous, because it's only 17 to 16, so there is going to be the chance for Tempo Storm to be on the same talent tier in a way for a while, so that they can make more moves, make different moves, be able to be right there instead of having to play at a disadvantage around the Immortal phase.
Looks like Tempo Storm wants that camp on top. That owl Glorung just sent out actually did not scout this, so nobody really necessarily knows where the member of Tempo Storm are, other than that Dahaka we see displaying on the bottom. 30 seconds until we have what could be a game-ending Immortal, depending on really who gets it in the shielding, because Roll20 is threatening lethal. Tempo Storm needs themselves a, I mean, we're talking 50 or higher shielding percentage onto that Immortal. But luckily, as you said, it is the 16 talent tier. More importantly than anything, we've hit the stage to where you see Tyrande is becoming less and less effective as time has gone on. And also, without the lack of the flip combo from the Garrosh into Tyrande, it's not as lethal as it is this combo could have been. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tempo actually, if this Immortal phase goes well for them, they can recover still in this game.
Immortals have spawned. Malthael gets some ticking damage down on Bella, the red Immortal. Tempo is looking for Roll20. Setting up a position so that Cawthon can start poking in, the same on the blue Immortal. And Justin doing what he can to absorb those shots. Honestly, as he absorbs some of those shots, initially he takes a lot of damage, but as he gets more and more armor, it gets to the point where he can absorb a ton of magic missiles from Cawthon.
It's really interesting, that kind of trade-off in adjusting that they have, especially with the Leeming on the side of Tempo Storm. Just with knowing that each ounce of damage and each ounce of healing to a certain extent can kind of only benefit him in that self-sustain, the trade-off in effective HP that this character has. The Dahaka is displayed on bottom, but nobody on the side of Roll20 has done anything to make it happen except look at Goku with the flank. Cawthon.
Yeah, it makes it really interesting because if you don't get enough poke, as they catch Glorung, who gets a heal, but if you get a ton of poke and aren't able to get the burst, you can actually make it more difficult to burst him down if you don't have that burst because of the way that his armor stacks and stacks. And especially when you have,
sources, right?
Yeah, you have Uther who can provide that armor on top of that. It's very easy for Justin to get to a 75 armor, which is the max that you can get.
This Immortal phase, so slow and calculated from Tempo. Fury gets a flip.
Oh man,
the
taunt down, jumps, but Goku's going after taking out Li Ming at the beginning of the battle.
And Goku ripping through them with the Tormented Souls on hot pursuit of June, Justin is going to try and find themselves another hook target. He finds a Fury. The shielding is not going to be enough to keep him alive. Prismac gets the auto, gets the kill. Tempo's down 2 members, and they're going to lose another Immortal now, Gilly. This is going to be moving towards that top keep. The 19 will be online. 20 won't be achievable immediately for Roll20, but Tempo is still within that game-losing situation here after that brilliant play.
Is there any... No, I guess you don't want to delay any longer because there's still members of Tempo Storm bringing down the shielding, and you want this to be as strong as possible for a potential in-game scenario. Justin's got a Warlord's challenge.
Got a flip. Got to have a dimensional shift. That was all the CC used, though, so no follow-up this time after that dimensional shift. We still have a keep wall, I do believe, up on top. No, we do not. So there is no, invisible experience to be achieved on the side of Roll20 here. So that is another major thing for Tempo. They have to move past this Immortal and be able to get a fight away from the core before the 20 thresholds hit for Roll20. It's just not whether or not Roll20 wants to give it to him or not.
Keeping Malthael with the team shows that Roll20 is not only fully committed to taking out this keep, if they play the right cards, they will hope that they can get the win. Sam thrown away from the team, wanting to get onto the back line. Goku may be in trouble, slowed down by Caterpillar, brought down. Again, Tempo Storm take the only fight they possibly can past the Immortal, and they win it.
And June's going to go ahead, throw down the beat, and everybody back right on out. This is going to be the Immortal defense for the keep. Obviously not working out too hot, but it stops the core, and that is the most important thing here. Tempo Storm has found themselves a 20 versus 20 fight in this game. But they have double catapult pressure now. That is not easy for just a solo Dahaka. Roll20 should be able to play it patiently. It's just waiting to see if Tempo Storm can force a fight and more importantly, force it effectively and get the kills that they need in this game.
The best news for Tempo is that there is no global on the other side of the battlefield. Roll20 doesn't have any sort of global to try to push and pressure those lanes. The best thing is maybe having a Malthael, but obviously he wants to be with the team whenever possible, and he's one of the core components to whittling down the health bars of the Immortals.
It's going to be an interesting thought on what Roll20 wants to do with this Shaman camp if they immediately cap it, which I'm assuming is the decision-making, just because they are now no longer effective. The Shamans are only useful up into the keeps and then onto the cores themselves, because the splash damage, the dogs end up getting the splash onto the Shaman just dies on its own. But it can be used as a faster escort for catapults, right? So it does make, it still has a valuable source, it's just different timing and a very more situational case as to where you want to prioritize it. I like the fact that they were willing to cap it and they're going to stall it out, and timing this pretty much as late as possible about the halftime show is really going to pay off for them if they end up waiting this long.
Tempo Storm, meanwhile, is getting their Shaman. I'm looking at the 20 talents. No one can stop death, of course, for Malthael if he ends up getting caught like in the last time. The one I'm really interested in is Tyranda's Shooting Star. We haven't seen too much of level 20 Tyranda, but I know that a lot of people like Ice Blade arrows for the damage reduction, but in this case, every 10th basic attack against heroes will allow her to cast a free Lunar Flare near Tyranda toward a random hero, and then as well it will increase her basic attack range, helping her be a little safer and making sure that she is staying safe from the Dahaka flanks. But 20 is also here now for Tempo Storm.
Both teams end up picking up their Shaman camp. That will benefit Tempo Storm-ish. I mean, I guess we are considering experience at this point anymore. So really nobody's going to get the upper hand. Dahaka is showing on bottom. It's just, can we see a brush stock play? Already one time trap, as you see up on that top shrub. But that last time, or at the very first fight of the game, actually was a brilliant opener here from Roll20 that cost Tempo Storm the fight that they wanted. Making only one trap incentivized. Flip goes on to Fury, Lunar Flare, afterwards the taunt, and immediately the bug is squashed. June is going to be the next to be brought in. Psalm comes into the brush stock, but he finds a time trap. Beautiful burrow. Goku with the Tormented Souls is unable to get any kills yet, but there goes the Reap on in, pulling the members of Tempo Storm. They just cannot control their heroes. Look at Kato though, those auto attacks getting a lot of splash. He's keeping the members alive. It's just Tempo can't win the fight. They just aren't losing it as fast as Roll20 expected. Yeah,
he's not letting anybody pass a certain point because of the splash damage, because of the slows, and because Buds takes a while to heal everyone up. Flowering gets caught by Koth and Luck. They found an answer to tie up 1-1, but they'll have 30 extra seconds when Anubarak comes back.
This is huge. That 30-second window is where Tempo Storm has to make this Immortal happen, which you see them trying to take advantage of right now. Cattle getting the auto attack reset on his level 20, never letting that Archon go.
Justic's going forward.
He's going for a flank here. Goku? No, he's just looking for that poke. Keep in mind, we do have the Malthael 20.
Goku's shown which side he is on. But so far, Tempo Storm rotating around the other way. Just both teams trying to escort their poke heroes to get the poke continually on the Immortals. Keep it even. This is one that Tempo Storm currently is winning in the health department.
In 30 seconds, Tempo Storm has been able to do about 30% of that Immortal. So at best, they're going to get the halftime show. But the members of Roll20 back out. They realize that it's going to, even almost finding themselves a Fury off to the side. Psalm is able to be enough of a deterrent to move on. Halftime's kicked off by Tempo. But Roll20, they have Glarong back. They do have the full 5 versus 5 now, and there are still catapults, 3 on top, 1 on bottom, sieging into Tempo's core. Yeah,
the Shaman camp from Tempo Storm has been dealt with now, and where Tempo Storm had Dahaka in one lane and the Shaman in the other, now they don't have that, so they are on the clock. It's ticking down for them as they move back in, and Roll20 hopes to defend their Immortal. All they have to do is buy some time, and eventually somebody has to give. Somebody must go back to deal with those catapults, and that is a time when Roll20 can strike.
Lunar Flare lands onto Cattle. There's going to be the first dimensional shift coming out from him. Dahaka has now shown himself into that top lane. Somebody on the side of Roll20 has to back out and be a threat. Otherwise, Cawthon with that Li Ming in the long run is going to make it happen. Prismaticism, in fact, is the member who's going to go back and do that damage. But this is a Chromie. She is not the hero who's known for that Immortal race. Flip going on to Cawthon right on top of the Immortal stun.
The Immortal stun.
That's enough. They get the pit.
There is no way that Cawthon Luck was getting out of that. Now Goku keeping the rest of the members at bay until Roll20 can go around to the side. Tormented Souls plus Divine Shield. Flowering in the fight. Goku bringing down the health bars. The Lunar Flare.
So crisp and clean. Cocoon used there onto Goku, but he's going to going to be coming out and ripping through tempo in a matter of seconds. It is just damage control on their end, and in the end, it looks like Roll20 has found themselves game number 1 on Battlefield of Eternity. Fury is just trying to stall out the inevitable with the Glarong actually taking out June. It really does seal the deal. This is it. My goodness.
This is it. Roll20 winning game number 1 over Tempo Storm on Battlefield of Eternity. Tempo Storm played as patiently as they could. They always understood the situation, but the flips are way too much for anybody to deal with. The combos of Roll20, the way they played around their Garrosh, even further than just making sure we have a stun after the flip. They have practiced this type of composition.